Well, hello everyone. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Welcome to our online MBA program spotlight on the University of Michigan's online MBA at the Ross School of Business. We have two terrific guests with us to talk about the program. Sarah McIntosh is the Associate Director of Admissions for the online MBA, and Carolina Menendez is a student in the program with an interesting background, and we'll get into that. And she is intending to graduate in 2024. Welcome.
Thank you.
So Sarah, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about the program. I know it's relatively young. I remember not long ago writing about the first graduate of the program. And of course, I've been following it from the very beginning. But give us the rundown for people who may not know about the Ross Online MBA.
Sure. So our online MBA started in September of 2019. So like you said, still a little bit young, but definitely have a lot going on within the program. Our online program is our most flexible program here at Ross. So on average, it takes 3 to 3.5 years to complete, but it is a self-paced program. So we have some students that are completing it in a little less, maybe a little bit longer. It's really great with the flexibility that's available within the program. The majority of the program is online through asynchronous and synchronous learning. So asynchronous meaning modules, simulations, things that you complete on your own time. And then synchronous sessions, so times where you get online with your faculty member and fellow classmates for live class discussion. The kind of other component of the program are our residencies. So this is where students come here on campus or to an international location for intensive programming. So within our program, you get that online flexibility, but then also that a little bit of that in-person connection as well. But that's a very high level of the program.
And I know that one of the key differentiators, if not the main one, for your traditional MBA program is really experiential learning and action projects. What's the key differentiator for your online version?
Yeah. So it's kind of hard to pick one. But definitely at all of our MBAs at Ross, our faculty teach with that action-based learning in mind, knowing that, just learning vocabulary, that's not enough. You have to know how to apply the learnings, apply, the different leadership tactics, different leadership skills that our students learn. So definitely that's within our online program as well. But I would say within our online program, I would say the faculty are amazing. They're the same faculty that teach within our in-person program. So knowing that even in an online format, our students are getting that same rigorous Ross degree, that's really important. I would say our fellow students, as you can see, we have students that are happy to come talk about the program, which is great, but they come from a variety of different backgrounds, which is really important within the classroom. You learn from the faculty, of course, but also learning from each other is really important. And then, as I kind of mentioned, just kind of in general, that curriculum, those residencies, again, you get to build that network within, those virtual classrooms, but then you get to dive deep within the curriculum of those residencies.
Right. How many students do you bring in a given year into the program?
Yeah, so we have two intakes. We have a fall intake, and then we have, so late August, and then a January intake. The fall is bigger, will be around 100 students, and then the winter will be around 45. People typically think school, they think fall. More people apply to the fall, but we're seeing about 145.
Right. And I know you have limits on your live class sessions, right? In terms
Yes.
of, yeah, what are the limits?
Yeah, so like within each classroom size, the faculty, again, since they're the same, they want those class sizes similar to what, or the same as what you see in person, because they still want to be able to know the students' names, know what companies, what industries they're working at. So depending on the class, it's typically around 45 to 60 people. Some of those residency courses get a little bit bigger just because when they come on campus, it makes more sense to have more people with the activities and programming they have, but majority of the classes around 45 to 60
Yeah.
students.
And I should point out to people who may not know that class size can be very important in these live sessions, because obviously the larger the class, the more difficult it is to manage a really dynamic and interesting discussion. So keeping it limited is a key part of a high quality program. Uh, Carolina, let's turn to you. And I wonder, what led you to pursue an online MBA? I noticed that you majored in political science and international economics at Boston College. Uh, Political science, poli-sci was my major. And then you ended up in business. So I'm assuming that's one of the reasons why you thought an MBA would be good in your toolkit.
Yes. So, like you mentioned, I studied political science, which I loved. I think it really gave me the communication skills that were necessary to land that first job. I worked in news and media, and I had a great time in that space. But I think, like many people, when COVID hit, I was actually living in New York City, and I came back down to my hometown of Miami with my husband, and the world looked very different. I had always thought of going to business school just because I didn't have that sort of business acumen or background or quantitative knowledge that I probably lacked, or at least I thought I lacked. And I felt like it was the perfect time where we're all at home. Why not go to school? And I never really thought of school online before COVID. I felt like it was really hard to take a break from working to go back to school. But in this new reality, I started looking at online programs. A friend of mine was actually at Michigan Law School, and she got an email about the OMBA program, and she's forwarded it to me. And I thought it was so interesting because it was a little bit of both. You have your online version, but you get to go to campus essentially once a semester, or depending on how long it takes for you to get the degree. You still had a MAP program. There were elements of the in-person without having to pick up and move again, without having to become a full-time student. So that's essentially, I applied to Michigan and a few other schools, but I chose Michigan for that reason. I just thought the program was really unique and in its hybrid nature.
Yep. And the other thing here that's interesting to me is that you seem to be in the right age for a full-time traditional program. And many people go online when they tend to be a little bit older, more like executive MBA types.
Yeah.
So you consciously made the choice that you wanted the flexibility and you wanted the income, and you didn't want to move again either.
Yeah, I had just moved. It was obviously a crazy time for a lot of people, myself included, but I also paired it with, I kind of took a risk. I was leaving a corporate job and I started working at a startup. And it was, for me, the best of both worlds, because I kind of had the safe option of going to school, studying, kind of building up my background while also taking on this riskier role at a new company. And as my degree has been able to progress, and also my time at the company has progressed, it's been great. They've coincided in a very positive way. And I felt like going to business school was the perfect time to kind of do it in real time. I was learning a very different skill set, kind of moving into like a strategic marketing brand strategy role, and also starting from the beginning, doing accounting, doing statistics, doing operations. And it was great to be doing both and learning how to problem solve in new ways.
Right. And you started the program when?
I started I was part of one of the winter cohorts, January 2021.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And again, it was kind of, I wouldn't say random, but it was one of those things where I was too late to apply for fall when, like Sarah mentioned, students think fall. And then when I saw they had a January intake, I didn't want to wait for a whole nother year. So I was very happy that they took me in January, and I'm likely going to finish the program in about 2.5 years.
Oh, wow. That's a lot shorter than many people take.
Yeah. Well, I also think because it's a self-paced degree, I was able to take on a heavier course load at the beginning when I had more free time, when my role at my company was much smaller. And as I've progressed through the degree, as I've progressed through work, I've taken on a lot more responsibility. And then you can kind of go at your own pace. I have friends of mine who take one course a term, and then I have friends who take 4. So it depends. A lot of people know their busy schedule. Our busy schedule is at my company is during the fall and during the holiday season, because we sell jewelry. So I know that in the fall, maybe I'll take certain courses that have a lighter lift that I know are more suited to my strong suits than, something that was extremely challenging for me, like statistics.
That would be challenging for me as well.
Yeah.
So tell us about the learning journey and your experience in it. Since this is your first time getting a degree online, obviously at BC you were in-person.
Yeah.
What are the main differences?
I think, like I mentioned before, I would have never thought to do an online degree before COVID, but then once our world had changed so much, it seemed less unique. People get jobs that are fully remote. So I felt like we all had learned to communicate in that way. The kinks, by the time I started in January 2021, the kinks were kind of out of the system. And I personally knew how to make connections more so online. Obviously, it's different. In a way, it's different because you're not in person. So it's harder to make those friends or like personal connections. But I think what's good with Ross, and especially the core courses, is a lot of it is group focused and group work focused. So that's where you really make the connections, is working on group projects. You're usually in the same group for the entire term. People have the same issues. People are, have children, they have full-time jobs. You're talking more than just about the problem at hand. And then you really do become friends later down the line. It's easy to Slack someone and ask them for a class recommendation, or if they liked a certain professor. And I think once you establish that, and then you're able to go in person for the residencies, it's almost like, everybody. It's weird. You're meeting in person for the first time, but you've already met, and you're there for, 4 or 5 days, but it feels so much longer. And I remember the second time I went for my residency, I kept saying it feels like sophomore year of college, where you got there already. I knew the campus. I had my friends. We had been in multiple classes together. I knew the restaurants in Ann Arbor. And although I didn't live there full time, the residencies really do make you feel like that in-person element was just right for me, without having to give up so many other things that full-time students have to give up.
True. Sarah, how many residences are there, in fact?
Yeah, so each student needs to complete 3 residencies. So we have residencies here in Ann Arbor. And then we also recently, I guess within the last year or so, we have added international residencies. So our students do have an opportunity, if they're looking to get some global experience, they're able to complete a residency internationally as well.
In each of these experiences, a 4-night or 5-day event?
Yeah, so it's 3 to 5 days. For the international residencies, we definitely do a whole 5 days, because there's a lot. We add in cultural things. We want students to have an opportunity to explore. So those are longer. But here in Ann Arbor, 3-4 days, but they're jam packed. Our students are busy from the time that they wake up until they go to sleep. So whether that be, obviously curriculum wise, it's very curriculum heavy, learning heavy, but also we plan different events. Sometimes students will go to football games. Sometimes they'll go to hockey games, like explore the restaurants in Ann Arbor. So it's jam packed. I hear, Carolina kind of said the same thing. I hear all the time that they're like mini reunions, because you're past the where do you work, where do you live? You're past all that, and you can really dive deep in the connection.
Yeah, I like Carolina's point of view, that it was almost like being a sophomore and coming back, and so things are familiar, but things are still new and fresh in a way. What was the workload like for you, since you're completing the degree in 2.5 years, and the average is more like 3+? One wonders how heavy it was for you.
Yeah, so I think at the beginning, like I said, I definitely took on a lot of courses because I knew I wasn't really working full time. At the beginning, it was more of a part-time because I was in this transition, and I thought I can dedicate more time to it. But then once it got to my busy season, I was able to pull back a little bit and make sure I was taking one course at a time, especially the ones that I knew would take more of that I would struggle more with personally. We have engineers who know they can handle certain classes better than others. I know my skill set being from, political science, marketing background, I can do business communication classes, management classes rather quickly. I can read a lot of information rather quickly. But when it comes to finance, it's going to take me a minute. I don't use Excel every day. So I know those classes are going to take more of my time and more hours, more office hour time. So it is really customizable to what you can do and what you want to do. I know there are people who take 5 years and there's no rush. There's no, oh, you've been here for a long time or you haven't been here long enough. Everyone's kind of going at their own pace, but I will say it's kind of like a bell curve. Like there's this middle group that goes kind of on the average, and then you have a couple people ahead, a couple people behind. So like I said, I think unlike a full-time degree with a online MBA, it's not your main thing, which offers a different perspective. People have full-time jobs. A lot of people have children. A lot of people are balancing multiple things. So you get a different perspective, people at a different point in their lives who still have to go to work 8-9 hours a day. They still have had conference calls. They have stressful work situations. They can't attend they have a perspective of it's not just school, which I think can be really helpful. When a professor is bringing up a problem or we're reading a case study, people are pulling from what happened at work yesterday. So it's been nice. I think that the workload is kind of up to you and how much you want to take on.
Yeah. And I wonder what the biggest surprises were for you in an online learning environment. What surprised you most?
I guess what was surprising was how interesting the in-person classes could be. Like, I think a lot of times you've heard of like this Zoom fatigue, or people are just over being on Zoom calls for the most part, but you don't have class every week at the same time. It's not, I think the Ross has done a really good job of researching, like basically what is the optimal amount of times to meet before people just check out. And they've kind of gotten to this rhythm where you meet just enough, but there's also a lot of group work on the side that keeps you engaged. So the self-paced modules are fantastic because if you have a slow day during the week or you want to catch up on a Sunday, you can absolutely do that. But in person, it kind of brings everybody back together and refocuses, almost like an in-person class. It's almost, I guess it would be very similar to like a lecture hall where there's a little bit of like that impersonal feeling, but it's still intimate for being on Zoom. I don't know. It wasn't as removed as I thought it would probably be. And it's not as tiresome to be on every 2-3 weeks to be on a Zoom for an hour and a half.
Yeah. And that's probably because the professors are good at teaching online, right?
Yeah.
Because you're interrupting with a little project work or group work or a poll or something that, delivers the learning in this kind of bite-sized spoonfuls.
And there's a lot of breakout room work. It's not just a lecture for an hour and a half. It's much more of a conversation, and I'm currently taking a high stakes leadership, like crisis management course. And our professor is bringing in different industry professionals who have dealt with crises and all from in industries from all over. So you'll have guest lecturers, they'll pop in, they'll pop out. And that's the great thing too. Somebody doesn't have to fly to Ann Arbor. You can have a friend who is a real estate developer in New York City, join a random class online, and they can be on for 20 minutes and be part of an interview or be part of a class discussion. There's also, like I said, breakout rooms. So it's definitely different. But it has a lot of pros. You're much more flexible. I think we're all adults. People know how, there's no problem for when you're thinking about like a 6th grader in class in Zoom, most people are paying attention. People can be flexible. If you travel for work, there's no real reason to miss a class, and people are taking class from the car. It's not ideal, but we all want to be there at the end of the day. That's why we're there. We're choosing to be there. So you really get a lot of engagement and people show up.
So there are no, the dog ate my homework excuses.
You rarely get that.
Right. So Sarah, I wonder how you would say an online program replicates other elements of traditional education that are important to MBAs, like networking, mentorship, career development opportunities?
Yeah, so specifically at Ross, all of our students know that obviously the knowledge that they learn in the classroom is most important, but that network is very close to that. So all of our students are very engaged and wanting to build that network. So within our program, as I mentioned before, the faculty are the same. And as Carolina has been saying, there's group work, there's classroom discussion. So within there, you hear, someone's working in this industry or this function. So you hear those things that you do in an in-person class, and our students are happy to connect after class about those topics, whether that be, obviously for school or work responsibilities. I hear all the time, I had this idea, my team was just not getting it. We were just stuck. I connected with one of my classmates and we just brainstormed a little bit and I had it. So it's really great to see that. With the kind of like mentorship, obviously with faculty, our students are making those connections and you'll see mentorship there. But again, because our students know that the network is important, they'll hear from people that they have interesting backgrounds and they want to hear, how did you get there? Because our students come from a variety of different backgrounds and a variety of experience, there's people in different stages, so they can all kind of learn from each other. And even if someone's further along with their career, they can connect with someone that's, just kind of starting out and hear, okay, what do you see? You're coming into the business world. How do I need to adjust to the new people coming into the workforce? And then, with like career development, things like that, our students have full access to the career development office, just like a full-time MBA student. So if they're looking to pivot, completely pivot their career, they can do that. Or if they are looking just to accelerate within their company, we have students that do both. Our career development office is flexible with their time. They know that you can't necessarily meet at 9 a.m. because you're at work, on a Tuesday, but they'll connect with you after hours. They'll do mock interviews. So all of that is there. It's just slightly, just in a different format. Again, because people come to Ross here for the network, for the curriculum, for the, the career development office, we make it, adapt to that online format.
Yes, that's all great stuff. Carolina, I wonder if you've been able to take advantage of actually learning something in the classroom and then bringing it immediately to work. And I should point out that you're head of growth for a jewelry company in Miami. And I wonder if, you had a class session or you were meeting with your group and an idea came up or a concept or a tool, and you immediately found it usable in your job.
Yeah, I mean, so many times, so many times, whether it's our marketing management course, that's a lot of what I do every day. And I remember we learned about customer profiles and basically thinking about your customer demographics and creating a profile. So like Millennial Mary, she likes avocado toast and she makes this amount of money. And like, it helps you focus on what that demographic is. And then you can market to them more efficiently. And I instituted that at my company pretty quickly. And it just helped us focus in a lot of ways. But I think even more so once I took operations, it was something that I had never really come in contact before. And it was a very challenging course, but it was, to me, one of the most interesting. And as my company is growing rapidly, we have a lot of operational, not problems, but just like puzzles we have to figure out. Like, how do you grow quickly, and how do we fulfill orders in an efficient manner? And what about our contracts with suppliers and lead times and all these things that I never really had the vernacular to express, but I knew were important. And that was something that was such a challenging course, but every day I'm able to tackle operational, I don't want to say problems again, but, operational things in my daily challenges in my daily work that I now feel much more confident handling, because I took a course on it and I was exposed to all of these different things. Going back to the residencies, one of the residencies is operations focused. And you spend a week trying to turn around this orange juice company and make it more efficient and more profitable. And I would have never obviously had that experience in the normal world. I wouldn't have had a week intensive on operations and how your head of sales can help fix your operational efficiency. That would have never crossed my mind. So that was a great experience.
You used a word that I think is really important and should resonate with a lot of people, and that is that you're more confident. I think self-confidence is an important byproduct of a good MBA program. And I don't mean cockiness. I mean the self-confidence to make decisions, to have opinions that are helpful to a business and to your colleagues. Do you sense that you have developed a level of self-confidence in a business now that makes you more effective?
Totally. I think that was a big part of why I always had business school in the back of my mind. Was I obviously went to college. I had a good job for 5 years. I developed a lot of strong skill sets, but when I wanted to pivot out of a niche area, which was entertainment, I felt like I didn't have the confidence to do that. And a lot of times I would apply for jobs and think I'm not good enough for this role, or they're not going to see, I worked in television. Why would I want to work in brand strategy? Why would I want to work in tech? You kind of feel stuck. And I feel like a lot of people, especially in COVID, felt that way.
Yeah.
It is a confidence builder. I felt like the biggest thing I could take away from getting a degree at Ross was my business acumen. I felt like I got exposure to a lot of different things, a lot of different people. You challenge yourself and you come out the other side saying, oh, wow, I took this valuation course and I did pretty well. I've never thought I could do that. I never thought I was a finance person. And now I feel like I could attend a meeting with, financial valuations in front of me and assess if they're good or bad, or like at least know what I'm talking about in a way that was not possible. I don't think I could do before. But at the same time, you experience, even though we're remote, you do have a lot of good friends and relationships. And I think that over time, you do get those compliments. Oh, that was such a good presentation, or you're actually really good at this. You should take this part. It just helps build your confidence over time when you're talking to people outside of your everyday, outside of your own industry, and they validate the work that you've been doing and you validate what they've been doing. It gives you so much more confidence to take back into the real world, because you're like, oh, if this engineer at Ford thinks I could do this, then I think I could do it too. How else would I come into contact with someone like that if they were not my friend? So I think Sarah's mentioned it before, but like we have such a diverse class. People are coming from such different backgrounds, and it's great. It's a great way to learn from them, and eventually get confidence from your time at Ross.
Yeah, and people are bringing all those experiences into the classroom and the discussions and in your group meetings. So you're learning a lot from your classmates. I wonder, what would you say are the 3 highlights of your learning experience so far?
Sure. So I think one I already mentioned, which was just I really do think that the way I've looked at my role at my current job and just when I think about my career, it has changed so much since being at Ross. I think Ross really focuses on giving back to a community. They're really values focused. And I think I bring that into my job now too. I feel much more confident in my business acumen, and just like the way I look at the world has changed because of Ross in a very positive way. The second, which is funny because people are so obsessed with Michigan. And I mean, like the fans, I came in being remote. You think that, oh, you're not going to get it. You're not gonna be a Michigan fan. You're not going to care about sports. Like from the day you get accepted, you are sent a sweater and a notebook and all this merch. And you're like, oh, wow, I'm part of a community that's just bigger than a school. And it's really fun. I think that the program does a really good job of helping you become a part of the Michigan community. And it's so big. Like I can be anywhere in the world, and I've seen people in Michigan hats, Michigan sweaters, and I do feel a part of it. At the beginning, I had a little bit of imposter syndrome because I was like, oh, I'm just an online student. But after you're there and you go to your first the fall residency always lines up with a football game, and there's a OMBA tailgate. And I think they really quickly like welcome you with open arms, and you feel a part of Michigan like almost immediately. And that I'm very excited about. I always have a Michigan sweater on now. I remember when the football team was doing well, I had some like people in my building would walk by and be like, go blue, go blue. So that's just really fun. It's not something that I even had in undergrad. And I was excited to pick a school where it was infectious. And then maybe the third thing was, so I'm in the middle of the MAP program right now, which I'm not sure if you're familiar, but it's the action-based learning part. Every Ross student has to essentially do, I think, what I've been referring to as like a consulting project with an outside company. And I got paired up with a real estate private equity firm. And at the beginning, I was like, I have no idea what I would contribute to a real estate private equity firm. My background is in entertainment. I am now in jewelry and, luxury goods. And the experience has been truly a highlight because I've learned so much from my team, from the company that has sponsored the project. And we're kind of towards the end of the project. And I feel like, again, you just get this confidence that you can solve issues that you maybe thought you weren't able to, and offer a different perspective to people that are working in problems that you never thought of yourself. So it's been really great to have like almost like 4-month long project with an outside firm and get that sort of experience that is essentially like a fantastic internship that I wouldn't have been able to do outside the Ross program.
Yeah. And Sarah, I'm sure that some of this resonates with you and what you hear from other students or graduates. MAP is definitely going to be one of the three. Are there other things that you would consider highlights of the experience, Sarah?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I think math is typically up there. Obviously, as we've mentioned, those residencies, we hear all the time that those are just great opportunities. I don't know how our students, they're so busy during them, but they want to stay, even longer sometimes. They want to really connect with that. They just
always a lot of like bittersweet feelings, like mixed feelings when people are going to leave and graduate, right?
Yeah, definitely. But I would say, a lot of key experiences, kind of what you mentioned, I hear a lot is just applying the learning real time, right? So you can take what you learn on a synchronous session on a Tuesday, go into work on Wednesday and see how the MBA is really changing the way you work, changing, your company. I think that's a very common thing that I hear from students a lot, that's really changed their way of work and where they really, really enjoy the online program.
Sarah, how do you see the online MBA evolving over the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, so our program, I would say, I think the technology is just moving so quick. Even with our program, we had a studio, obviously in 2019, and we've just added a second studio, which is, they're both amazing, but the second studio is unlike anything I've ever seen. So I think there's the technology that is going to be used for these synchronous sessions to make them feel even more in person than they are, is really going to evolve. In our program, we're seeing more elective courses that are being developed. So students have a little bit more choice in where they want to take their learning. But it definitely is evolving. Our faculty are going through a lot of training to be able to utilize the new technology. We're seeing them, develop courses. Marketing courses should be developed a certain way, and accounting should be developed. So we're seeing that really, fine tune what they're doing within that online format. Because again, they take what they do in person and develop it online, but they might tweak it a little bit to really fit within the format.
That's great. Carolina, what changes would you like to see over the next 3 or 5 years? You won't be there to experience them, but
yeah. No, I truly, there's not much. I think my one thing, and Sarah, you mentioned it, is just more classes. Like I haven't, it's not an availability issue. It's just like a range of classes that I think as the program gets gets older, there's just going to be more classes. Like I would have loved to take a real estate course that I know is being developed for next year. Things like that just come with time. But that's truly it, I think.
Yeah. And Carolina, I wonder what advice you would give to a person who was like you, looking for an MBA, maybe even unsure at one time whether you wanted to do it in person or online, and then choosing among the online options. What's your advice?
I think you really have to take a moment to know what you want to get out of an MBA, because they are very different. I think I had a lot of friends do the in-person. I think it's very important to talk to people who have gone through both and understand their experience to be able to tell what you want to get out of it. I think there's so many pros to moving to a new place, being on campus, being, just entrenched in a new culture. And if that's something that you want to do, there's the in-person is definitely for you. I also think for me, it was much more about getting the academic part of an MBA and applying it almost in real time to another part of my life that I was trying to get together, which was my career. So, sure. But if there's people who want to pivot, or people who, for example, like consulting, recruiting was a huge part. You can do in-person classes, by the way, with the online MBA for Michigan. So we had a lot of people would go in person for the fall to do recruiting, which is interesting, and not every OMBA program allows you to do that. But I just think it's really what you want to get out of it. And I was in a very particular part of my life. I think a lot of people in our program want school to fit, but it wouldn't fit if it was in person. And if you're that kind of person, definitely consider an OMBA, because it's one of the things that has kind of evolved in this new world that gives you a lot of the benefit without you having to sacrifice probably more than you would want to. Ross in particular, I just think, like we've talked about for the last 30 minutes, has so many differentiating components to it. I think it's essential that you go in person for some parts of the degree. There's truly nothing like being in person. So whether it's a week here, a week there, or going for just a football game or going for a specific recruiting event, it is essential. And I think the residencies make such a difference. If I signed up for an online MBA program and then 2 years later I was walking on graduation, I don't think it'd be the same as just checking in every couple months. I think you still get access to the most incredible faculty. I mean, I never thought I would enjoy an accounting class. And when I tell you, my accounting class was my favorite classes, because our faculty is just so amazing. And the life experience they bring to the classroom is pretty incredible. We have a former founder of JetBlue as one of our professors that we still get to speak to. They're still in office hours. It's all virtual, but Ross is pretty incredible. And the fact that they're making it more accessible to people who maybe can't get up and move to Ann Arbor, I think is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. The Michigan program is premium priced, and we should point that out, because people look into it, will look at the price and they'll be, wow, that's a lot of money for an online MBA. But I want to also point out why. First off, it's the brand. Michigan routinely is, among the top 10 MBAs in the country. And so the brand is great. Ann Arbor is great. That's one element of it. The fact is that you have tenure track professors teaching in the program, not assistants, and not adjunct faculty like many other programs. So the same people who teach in the full-time residential program are teaching in the online program. You have the residency aspect of this, which does allow you to develop deeper bonds with students and with faculty, for that matter. And then the other thing that I think is really important, is often overlooked in an online MBA program, is career development support. In a program like Michigan, you have a lot deeper career development support. Sarah mentioned that you can use their career development facilities and their staff. There's coaching. And a lot of that is often missing from a lot of other online MBA programs. Not to mention limits on class size, because if you have classes with 1,000 or more students, they're going to be considerably different online than a class with 45 students. And your ability to comment, interact with others, that's all a big part of it. Now, Sarah, if people want to explore further and get more information on the program, or even reach out to people like Carolina and ask the nitty-gritty, so what's it really like? Can they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in general, our Ross website has a lot of information, but I'm kind of two places that I point people to is one, our admission events. So we hold info sessions, which will have student ambassadors on, which will share about their experiences. We'll also do like individual phone consultations. So we're happy to connect. And then the second spot where I point people to is our student ambassador profile. So we have current students and alumni ambassadors. I always say it's one thing to talk with the admissions team, but it's a whole other thing to talk with people that actually go through the program. So those are kind of the two spots. Like I said, the admissions event, and it has our contact information there as well. And then connecting with the current and alumni. Those students, they're happy to connect, talk about their different experiences, talk about the different classes that they took, or what clubs they are part of, or where they took their career, their access to the CDO. They're really great resource.
That's terrific. Well, listen, thank you so much for participating. Really appreciate it. I learned a bit myself. So for all of you out there, thanks for watching. We've been speaking with Sarah McIntosh, who is Associate Director of Admissions, and Carolina Menendez, who is a current student and about to graduate in 2024. Will you go to Ann Arbor and pick up your diploma with, in gown and cap and gown?
Absolutely. It's actually the same weekend as my 30th birthday. So I'll be spending my 30th birthday in Ann Arbor.
That's great. That's a great place to celebrate. Well, congratulations in advance.
Thank you.
All right. And for all of you watching, thank you for watching. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. See you soon.